5 News at 12:30 starts now.
Well, welcome to 5 News at 12:30 on 5 News Plus. I'm Tiffany Lee here with Noah Simmons. Where, Noah, y'all are working a little extra today because burn bans keep coming in because of all this wind today.
We got a few burn bans, specifically Madison, Benton County, Johnson County, even I think it was Adair, Delaware. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think regardless, we got the red flag warnings in place. So whether you're in a burn ban or red flag warning, it's just not a good idea to do any burning or anything like that. Let's kind of take a look at what we're going to be seeing out there. And those red flag warnings, that's what I've been talking about. Pretty much almost every single county, with the exception of Scott County, LaFleur County, and Sebastian County. However, if you are under a red flag warning, what does that mean? Outdoor burning is not recommended because we have very dry and lower relative humidity values. We have very breezy conditions. You might even be able to hear it if you're, depending on where you're watching, with some of that wind rattling the window panes potentially, and very warm temperatures. That's all going to combine a little bit of elevated fire danger out there. I'm not going to be saying there's widespread fires. However, there's a little spark that gets ignited that could easily maybe create a fire, and that fire could potentially spread rapidly with some of those strong winds out there. Here's the setup. We got that low pressure system just to our north, that strong wind field and those counterclockwise winds around that low pressure, really enhancing the wind field, giving us those very breezy conditions and almost a bit of a dry line, kind of giving us that drier air and a cold front. That's going to push through later this evening and give us some of that colder air come tomorrow and even lasting into this weekend as well. If you look at our current humidity values, anytime you have humidity between about 15% and 25%, you're talking about very dry air at the surface, and that could easily spark a quick little fire out there. Certainly hope that's not the case the rest of today, but we kind of just want to make that aware of you guys out there in the event that maybe you're smoking a cigarette. Make sure you properly dispose of that cigarette out there. Very breezy winds, not just the next couple hours, but pretty much the whole duration of the afternoon. We'll see those winds gusting between 35 and 40 miles an hour at times the rest of this afternoon, so it's very breezy. That continues here through about 3, 4 in the afternoon. Once you get to maybe later this evening, about 8, 9 p.m., those winds are becoming more out of the northwest with that cold front pushing through, and they're going to be becoming a little bit less strong. So definitely expecting weaker winds into the overnight hours, as well as colder temperatures. Look at our cold mornings, 32 in northwest Arkansas, mid-30s in the River Valley. It's cold and mainly clear as those winds slowly start to diminish, so definitely a colder morning on tap for us. In terms of our high temperatures and how we're going to perform for Friday afternoon, well, certainly it's going to be a cooler afternoon. Only highs expected to be into the 50s in northwest Arkansas, and then probably the upper 50s, some lower 60s across the River Valley. At least it's lighter winds, and we don't want to talk about a fire weather hazard at all for your Friday. We're going to continue that cooler temperatures and that cooler air heading into this weekend. Highs only near 50 in northwest Arkansas. Kind of breezy at times for Saturday and Sunday, but notice we're not going to be talking about gusts of 35 or 40 miles an hour. In the River Valley, we'll see a high into the upper 50s for Saturday, middle 50s for Sunday. Morning lows are going to be pretty cold, though, near 30 for Sunday morning. We got that 20% chance of rain for Saturday. Kind of want to talk about it real quick here on Futurecast. We'll start and pick it up here on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. We're going to be seeing that increase in cloud cover. Notice most of Friday we're going to be dry. We don't have a rain chance to talk about. However, once we get to Friday night into the overnight hours and heading into early Saturday morning, we could see a couple spot showers maybe firing up after midnight while a lot of people are probably going to be asleep for early Saturday morning. And then it's going to be a little bit colder early Saturday morning where we could even squeeze a few of those snowflakes out there. Of course, not expecting any issues because we've been so warm recently. Wouldn't expect any accumulations as the ground temperatures would be very warm out there. And really, we're just not expecting any measurable precip with that little round on Saturday. But even the next 7 days, we're still looking fairly dry, which certainly is not going to help our drought out there by any means. Temperatures are going to be cooler, though. This weekend, only near 50, Monday 51. We do warm things up, though, next Tuesday and next Wednesday. Start to rebound back to the 60s and the 70s. Of course, we still have to talk about that elevated fire danger risk for this afternoon across the region. Highs into the 70s this afternoon for Thursday, and then once we kind of get to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, definitely cooler air, some cold morning for the kids at the bus stop, and then we'll slowly start to rebound our temperatures. Look at next Tuesday, next Wednesday, looking to be back into those 60s and the 70s.
All right, thanks for that, Noah. Well, happening right now, murder suspect Casey Jennings is appearing in Washington County Court for a pretrial hearing. Jennings is charged with capital murder in connection with the 2022 death of his ex-girlfriend, Allison Castro. 5 News reporter Bo Russell has been in the courtroom tracking the latest. Bo, what are we learning?
Tiffany, well, this, right, like you said, a pretrial hearing to discuss motions, and also, let me make sure I get my terminology right, it's a suppression hearing as well. So first, let's talk about the motions. Well, leading up until just recently, Casey Jennings had decided that he was going to represent himself, which is extremely unusual in a capital murder case, especially one with it being the death penalty as a possible punishment. However, Judge Joanna Taylor, who's presiding over the case, decided that that wasn't going to fly. So Jennings has been appointed a public defender, one of whom was seen in court today is Jeff Rosenzweig, who's known for defending capital murder cases as well as fighting the death penalty. Now, there was a number of motions today that were addressed to try to get rid of the death penalty as a possible punishment in this case. All of those motions were either denied or withdrawn. However, the only motion that was granted was a motion to withdraw any evidence that may have been presented when Jennings was talking about a possible plea agreement. So that was the only motion that was granted. Then the suppression part of the hearing began, which was to present witnesses and evidence to see if it might be admissible later during their actual trial date in June. Now, today we heard from a Fayetteville Police corporal who is the responding officer at the scene initially when a call was made to Jennings' residence for an overdose. Now, that officer then returned later when this disconcerting note was found that had been left by Jennings. So we saw his body cam footage today. We also heard from Jennings' roommates, and we're going to hear from more witnesses. There were a number of subpoenas that can be found on Arkansas Court Connect for today's pretrial hearing that's expected to go into tomorrow. So I'm going to have all those updates for you as they become available. Live at the Washington County Courthouse, covering news where you live, I'm Bo Russell, 5 News.
All right, thanks for that update, Bo. Well, today, Washington County Judge Patrick Deakins will give the annual State of the County address. He will speak during the quorum court meeting that will start at 6 tonight at the county courthouse. A spokesperson for the county says Deakins will talk about accomplishments, efforts to manage county resources, and goals for the future. And we have a preview of the Arkansas governor's race for this year. 3 candidates are running this time around. Republican Governor Sarah Sanders is running for re-election, and 2 candidates in the Democratic Party. We have State Senator Fred Love and Supazay Prasithmes, a businesswoman from Bentonville.
I was born in Arkansas. I have never left Arkansas, and I'm going to ensure that Arkansas works better for all Arkansans.
I am not a politician. I am a peopletician. What's that mean? It means that I run to serve the people, the constituent of the state, not the party, not the position, not the politics.
Whoever wins the primary will run against Governor Sanders. The governor's campaign manager spoke about her efforts to improve education in the state.
Arkansas has made a lot of great strides on that front, whether it's highest starting teacher pay in the country, focusing on literacy, ending indoctrination in our classrooms, empowering parents in their children's education.
Again, primary election day is March 3rd, with the race between the Democratic winner and Governor Sanders set for November. Well, we do have a full voting guide for next month's primary on our website, which is 5newsonline.com. Just text the word VOTE to 479-785-5000, and we'll send you a link. Well, President Trump held the first meeting of his Board of Peace this morning, created following the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. It comes as CBS News has learned that he's weighing new military action against Iran as soon as this weekend, but no decisions have been made. Natalie Brand has more.
I think we have to smile. A lot of good things.
President Trump convened an inaugural Board of Peace meeting in Washington, D.C. Thursday morning with at least 24 countries represented.
We've done the biggest thing of all. We have peace in the Middle East right now.
The president also announced that member states have pledged more than $7 billion for humanitarian aid and reconstruction in Gaza.
When you set aside weapons and killing and destruction and invest in your people and invest in prosperity, it can create great things.
The meeting comes as President Trump weighs action against Iran. Sources tell CBS News top national security officials have told the president the military is ready for potential strikes as soon as this weekend.
They cannot continue to threaten the stability of the entire region.
But sources say the timeline is likely to extend beyond the weekend and that President Trump has not yet made a final decision.
They must make a deal, or if that doesn't happen, I maybe can understand. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But bad things will happen If it doesn't,
As part of a massive military buildup, a second aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, is on its way to the Middle East. All U.S. forces deployed to the region are expected to be in place by mid-March. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Well, British police have arrested the brother of King Charles in their investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Former Prince Andrew was taken into custody this morning. CBS's Tina Kraus has the latest in London.
The arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the younger brother of King Charles III, comes on Andrew's 66th birthday. The former prince, who was stripped of his royal titles late last year over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, is now in custody on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police arrested him at his home on one of the king's royal estates this morning, a few hours outside of London. They're now carrying out searches at 2 addresses in the area. They're also assessing reports the former royal sent sensitive trade reports to the billionaire pedophile back in 2010. Multiple police departments across the UK previously said they were reviewing ties between Andrew and Epstein, including allegations a woman was trafficked here to Britain by Epstein to have a sexual encounter with the king's brother. Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein, saying he regrets their friendship. The arrest of a member of the royal family is an extraordinary development, considered unprecedented in the modern history of the British monarchy. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
Taking a live look out in Fayetteville, the time now, 12:42. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, as the Winter Games enter their final days, Team USA earned a long-awaited gold for Mikaela Shiffrin, who hasn't medaled since 2018. CBS's Seth Dome was there on the slopes when she skied to victory.
Mikaela Shiffrin came out of the gate dominant, well ahead after her first run, and demonstrating slalom is a specialty in her last race of these games. When Shiffrin realized she'd get to that podium for a long-awaited third gold, she was a ball of emotion, the youngest and oldest to win Olympic gold in alpine skiing.
Sometimes it's a little bit hard to believe, sort of, so it's like, wait, are we sure? Because it would be embarrassing to celebrate and have that not be real, you know?
Shiffrin grabbed her first gold more than a decade ago in the same event, but has not taken any shade of Olympic victory since 2018.
What was it like to sit there and watch Mikaela Shiffrin bring home that gold?
Oh, it was incredible. I was so nervous for her, but so happy. And that margin of win. Like, that was incredible.
On Wednesday, she finished a full second and a half ahead of the silver medalist in a sport where making the podium or not can come down to 1/100ths of a second.
She's such a beautiful technical skier, so smooth, and so just watching that, it's, she's poetry in motion.
Schifrin's win came just after a historic moment for cross-country teammates Ben Ogden and Gus Schumacher. The pair took silver in the team sprint, marking Ogden's second silver of the Games and Team USA's third ever in men's cross-country skiing. Still aiming for gold is the U.S. men's hockey team. In a quarterfinal showdown, Sweden scored with less than 2 minutes remaining to send the game into overtime. But Team USA's Quinn Hughes made the final game-ending goal, propelling America to Friday's semifinals.
The women's hockey final is today, the U.S. versus Canada. That is the same final matchup we've seen in every Winter Olympics except one. Seth Doan, CBS News, Cortina.
Well, coming up, crews continue the search for one skier after an avalanche strikes a guided ski trip near Lake Tahoe. We'll have more on the search efforts ahead. Well, developing this afternoon, an avalanche in California is now one of the deadliest in U.S. history. Rescuers say 8 skiers have been found dead in the Sierra Nevada and a 9th is still missing. There are now questions about why the group continued with the ski trip after heavy snow warnings. CBS's Matt Gutman is in California with more.
Someone saw the avalanche, yelled avalanche, and then it overtook them rather quickly.
A grim discovery led to the deadliest avalanche in California history.
8 of the 9 additional skiers have been located deceased. We are still looking for one of the members at this time.
Nevada County Sheriff Shannon Mood said Wednesday a football field-sized slab of snow slid off a mountain in the Castle Peak area about 10 miles north of Lake Tahoe Tuesday, swallowing a group of backcountry skiers.
Medical for an avalanche in the area of Castle Peak.
The group of 11 skiers and 4 guides was returning from a 3-day backcountry ski trip during a monster storm that dumped up to 7 feet of snow and lashed the mountains with 60-mile-per-hour winds.
It's been a challenging rescue, but it's also been challenging emotionally for our team.
Officials say one of the 9 victims was married to one of the rescuers. The other 6 members of the group were found alive after reportedly seeking refuge in huts.
They suffered some sort of injuries during the avalanche itself.
And now questions are being raised about why the group stayed up there more than 2 days after the first avalanche watch was issued indicating large avalanches were likely in as little as 24 hours.
You know, those are the decisions that the guide company clearly had made. We're still in conversation with them on the decision factors.
In this social media video posted on Sunday by Blackbird Mountain Guides, the company that organized the trek, a guide warns that a weak layer in the snowpack could trigger unpredictable avalanches.
What's the best way to survive an avalanche?
Not put yourself in a position where you could get caught in an avalanche. Heeding the warnings, paying attention to the forecasting, sharing your travel routes, traveling in pairs, avoiding avalanche-prone areas.
And overnight, Blackbird Mountain Guides, that outfitter, said that 4 of those instructors on that mountain were actually avalanche instructors, and they had been in contact with the company about conditions and routes. As for the victims, all 9 of them remain on that mountain, but at this point, officials here say that they are not willing to risk the safety of rescuers to send them in these kinds of conditions, but the weather is expected to clear tomorrow. Matt Gutman, CBS News, Soda Springs, California.
We'll keep you updated as we learn more about that. Well, now it's time for another look at the forecast. Here's Noah with what you can expect for the rest of the day and into tomorrow.
We got some more burn bans to talk about, specifically Adair County in Oklahoma. We now have Benton, we have Carroll though now, also Johnson County, Madison County, all under a burn ban. Maybe just because your county isn't necessarily in a burn ban doesn't mean it's necessarily a good idea to do any burning outside, because we have red flag warnings in place. What that means is that if there was to be a little spark out there that could ignite a fire, and that fire could spread rapidly with the very dry humidity out there and the very strong winds. So that's basically all that red flag warning is saying. We're not saying there's going to be widespread fires and destruction or anything like that. We're not saying that. We're just saying the conditions could be favorable this afternoon, and they are favorable for if a little spark were to get going, it could quickly cause and start a fire. We certainly don't want that, but we're still going to be seeing those strong winds throughout the duration of this afternoon. You'll see these wind gusts in between about 30 and 40 miles an hour widespread this afternoon. That's going to continue throughout 4 or 5 p.m. You'll see that here behind me on the screen. Those wind gusts really starting to crank there. They're going to be from the west, and they're going to actually switch out of the northwest later this evening, about 8, 9 o'clock this evening as a cold front swings through. That's going to give us some colder air, but in the meantime, this afternoon, we'll enjoy those very warm temperatures into the 70s across northwest Arkansas, upper 70s. We could even have a couple low 80s out there across the board for your Thursday afternoon. But coming up, we got some cooler weather to talk about, not just for Friday, but also the weekend. You'll see that in the 7-day forecast coming right up.
Thanks for that, Noah. Well, here is a live look out in Fort Smith. Stay with us. We'll break down your top stories here on 5 News Plus right after this. Well, welcome back as we look at today's top stories. Murder suspect Casey Jennings appearing at the Washington County Courthouse for a pretrial hearing right now. Jennings is charged with capital murder in connection with the 2022 death of his ex-girlfriend, Allison Castro. Earlier this month, the Washington County judge ruled Jennings was no longer allowed to represent himself, reversing an earlier decision. Lawyers were assigned to the case, and Jennings' planned trial date for this month was postponed. It's now scheduled to begin on June 10th, and Jennings is facing the death penalty. And the Sequoyah County Sheriff's Office says it is investigating a shooting threat toward Moffett School. The school is closed today as a precaution. The Sheriff's Office says someone posted a comment on social media indicating that they would shoot up the school on February 24th. Officials say the FBI, Arkansas State Police, and Fort Smith Police helped to locate and identify the author of the post. However, they're not releasing the person's name due to their age. The Sheriff's Office says that there is no credible threat to students or staff as of right now. And today, Washington County Judge Patrick Deakins will give the annual State of the County address. He will speak during the quorum court meeting that will start tonight at 6 at the county courthouse. A spokesperson for the county says that Deakins will talk about accomplishments, efforts to manage county resources, and goals for the future.
We'll just take a look at that red flag warning. What does that mean? It just means outdoor burning is not recommended, especially with those very dry relative humidity values and those very strong winds. If there were to be a spark that potentially could light, that could quickly create a fire, and that fire could spread rapidly, especially with the wind. So, hey, if you take the proper precautions, you don't create any sparks out there, we shouldn't have any issues to worry about. So that's just that red flag warning. That's just for today. We have to talk about some cooler temperatures, though, in northwest Arkansas. No more highs in the 70s necessarily. Friday's about high in the upper 50s to near 60. Saturday, Sunday, definitely cooler. Highs only near 50. That's kind of more what February should feel like since we've been spoiled with all that warm. Even low temperatures are going to be in the 20s, so pretty cold into the mornings for Sunday, Monday morning. Got another warm up to look forward to, though, for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week in the River Valley. Temperatures well into the 70s for your Thursday afternoon. The winds are lighter for Friday. Still kind of breezy here and there for Saturday into Sunday. That 20% chance. Could see a couple showers overnight early into early Saturday morning, but overall, just expecting kind of a cooler weekend, and then temperatures kind of warm back up again about a week from now.
Yeah, you might want to bring some layers this weekend, especially if you're going out to the games.
Especially in the morning, too.
Definitely. Good advice, Noah. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here at 4.